What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Feds. I have my buddy Jim here. We have some fun stuff to talk about with you guys today, so stay tuned. All right, guys, so we are back. This is going to be our first episode, and we're going to bring you guys many more like this setup. We're going to try to do this at least once a week. So we're going to do this live, unedited, uncut. This is just natural setting. So,
lucky them.
Yeah, lucky you guys. Because I don't have a censor. I need to censor myself here and there. But, I'll try to make it as clean as possible because I want everybody to be able to watch the show. So,
totally unleashed here.
Unleashed. I don't have anybody poking me on the side telling me, hey, you can't say that. So
you probably shouldn't let us do this together, but whatever.
Yeah, we'll try to keep it as PG as possible.
Yeah.
So as you guys know, we're here. We talk about the vaccine, the mandates, and all the stuff that everybody has gone through for the past 3 years. And I know it might get boring. It might get, we constantly hear about COVID. COVID's over. COVID's over. It is over, but the fight is not over yet.
And
right?
I think also, just to people rest assured, we are going to branch out into other discussions. Tonight, we are still keeping on the COVID topic, but freedom has a lot of different issues that I think are worthy of discussion. We've had people from Treasury and IRS hitting us up on email talking about CBDCs. We've had people hitting us up talking about the economy. I think there's a whole lot of geopolitical issues out there that are worthy of conversation. But tonight we're going to do one quick one on COVID-related issues.
Of course. I mean, just bring your mic down just a little bit. So
there you go. So people can hear me.
Yeah.
Look at that.
But yeah, I mean, we still have to cover some of the COVID issues that, stay active, mandate-wise and all that stuff. So, we don't want it to slip under the rug and all of a sudden, surprise, it's back. You know what I mean? So, because that's what caught us off guard. It was a surprise attack, and the mandates were also some sort of surprise attack because first we had, the previous administration saying, no, there's not going to be a mandate. Then the new administration is like, oh, no, there's going to be a mandate. So, we have to keep vigilant of these changes. So, if it comes, we should be on top of it right away. So
I think some of the reason we talk about this is, we've gotten very good at understanding how they're using this playbook to negatively affect our freedom. And so I think, there's some things that are coming out towards the tail end. It feels like we've gotten past, maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like we've sort of hit the top of the plateau here, and now we've gotten past the whole thing of losing our jobs over vaccine mandates, and now it's the cleanup crew. Right. What happens after with litigation? What happens with mooting of cases? And I think, as an example, our case with Feds for Freedom, formerly Feds for Medical Freedom, we've got that case that was out of the Fifth Circuit, and it has been DOJ has appealed that up to the Supreme Court. Now, it's an unusual appeal, and we've talked about this before, but it's related to what we want to talk about tonight, which deals with DOD and NDAA, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But what DOJ wants to do with the Feds for Freedom case is they appealed it up to the Supreme Court on jurisdiction issues, meaning they keep hammering us on you don't have a right to pre-enforcement challenge. First things first, federal government employees have to use the Civil Service Reform Act, like EEO, MSPB, equal opportunity employment, equal employment opportunity, the Merit Service Protection Board, those sort of processes before going to court. So basically, DOJ is saying you got to get fired first before you can go to court. And then there's a couple other issues. But they're trying to get that case, what they call vacatur, which means, am I pronouncing that right? Vacatur? V-A-C-A-T-U-R? I don't know.
You're asking an immigrant, bro.
Okay, it's a legal term.
English is my fifth language.
Okay,
So.
I've read it. I don't generally speak the word, but I think it's vacatur. And it means that they're going to try and get all those lower court rulings removed and the case mooted. And those lower court rulings are pretty important because it establishes case law that ensures that they can't just easily go forward and issue another vaccine mandate. So we're working very hard to keep those lower court rulings in play. We'll know more. I think it's October 16th is the next time we'll find out whether or not the Supreme Court is ready to make a ruling, but that could shift. It could be
And
next week.
That's around the corner, man. October 16th.
That's around the corner, but they could choose to shift it down the line, further out. So
do you think they're gonna push back till next year?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I really have no idea. I don't think anybody really has an idea. It could be next week. It could be 6 months from now. So
Sure. Okay.
we just sit tight. But there's a related issue to this. So you've got what they call for DOD, they've got the National Defense Authorization Act, and they do one or a number of them every year. And the one that came out for fiscal year 23 basically said, hey, listen, and it came out on 24 August, 2021. Is that right? No, sorry. Yeah. Oh, no. It repealed the 2021. Yeah. So it repealed the August 24th, 2021 mandate that came forward saying, hey, listen, there's no more COVID mandate for DOD. Now, on the surface, that sounds good, right?
Yeah.
Hey, no mandate, good. But, it's a bit of a mixed bag here. And what I'll do is I'll actually read the actual verbiage here for.
Yeah, let's read the verbiage, then we'll dissect it to what it actually means.
So, fiscal year 23 NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, Section 525, rescission of COVID-19 vaccination mandate. Not later than 30 days after the date of the enactment of this act, the Secretary of Defense shall rescind the mandate that members of the armed forces be vaccinated against COVID-19 pursuant to the memorandum dated 24 August 2021. That was the one that mandated this stuff. Regarding mandatory coronavirus disease 2019 vaccination of the Department of Defense service members. That was the name of it. So, hey, great. This comes out. It says, hey, listen, they're going to 30 days from now, you got to shut this thing down. Now, there's a bit of a catch 22 with this. So, the way this has been described to me by someone who has been negatively affected by these policies is that this was actually the second time that maybe the military, Congress sort of, what's the right term for this? May not have been as helpful as they thought they were being regarding the COVID-19 shots. So, the first time was fiscal year 22 NDAA.
So let me stop you there. How was the Congress was going to be helpful? In what way?
Well, so these NDAAs, these National Defense Authorization Acts, coming from Congress,
right?
They come forward and they're there to help. Well, no, they're not there to help. They're there to actually, enact things from Congress that DOD needs to implement.
Okay.
And so I'm sure when they were putting this together, they thought, okay, this will help. Shots will be gone, but there was some stuff that maybe could have been included in that NDAA that could have helped the military more, and we'll get to that.
Sure. Okay.
So the first time that Congress maybe didn't help was fiscal year 22 NDAA, where they specifically cited that the order as being lawful, the original order, the order that mandated that in 2021, August of 2021, saying it's lawful. However, there's a couple USC codes on the book that would say it wasn't. And that would be 21 USC 360 BBB-3 and 10 USC 1107A. So those, and people have heard this before, this is the whole switcheroo thing.
Yeah.
How do we pronounce Comirnaty again? Comirnaty. Whatever it is.
Just call him Comey.
Okay. Yeah. So it's a bait and switch, but those two codes say clearly the military has a right to refuse EUA products. So this is the first time in fiscal year 22 NDAA, Congress said, hey, listen, this is legal. However, there's 2 statutes out there, or 2 codes out there that says, no, it's not, because you can't mandate an EUA. But they tried this switcheroo where Comirnaty was a product that was never going to get put out for the military to use.
So let me ask you a question. I've never served in the military, so I don't know what the rules and regulations are when you sign up to the military. I know you're supposed to get 1,001 shots when you get in, because you basically sign your rights away.
That is exactly what happened to me. You get in a line, and they just pound you full of shots,
right?
And yeah.
So this is the gray line, guys. This is where the gray line is, where these shots that have been given to service members have been around for God knows how long. They're all been human tested, animal tested, insect tested, air tested, whatever.
Except
tested.
for anthrax. That one was a mess.
So anthrax was a mess, right?
And I don't know if they know, but the guy who shut down the anthrax vaccine for the military, he's part of Federal Practice Group's legal team for Feds for Freedom. So
okay,
we got a winning team. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
So anthrax got shut down. That's one of the vaccines that got shut down, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And now COVID came along. So correct me if I'm wrong. You have a background in biology. When there is some sort of vaccine coming out, what is the length of after side effects, if it not immediately? What's the duration of when we can find out what the side effects of a vaccine is? And this is a question that's been asked 1,000 times. And no one has ever been able to give us an answer, because what they said, we just have to wait and see, right? And there's a lot of people that go through these trials for the vaccines. They get paid for it, or sometimes people volunteer to be the guinea pig for new vaccines or new drugs or whatever. These pharmaceutical companies, they put out ads that, hey, we need to test out a new drug, or they go to the doctors, pharmaceuticals go to doctors, and they're like, hey, we have a new drug. It does X, Y, and Z. And, there's actually a good series called Addicted. You should watch it. It's all about Oxycontin. So it's a great
check it out.
It's a great documentary of how Oxycontin was became a drug where people got addicted, and actually healthcare workers and hospitals and doctors were actually prescribing it because they were getting a kickback from pharmaceuticals. So what's the difference between these kind of drugs, shots, vaccines, all these stuff that are coming out from these pharmaceutical companies, right? Who benefits out of this? Does the great human population benefit out of it? Maybe. But there's always a certain percentage that the human population does not benefit, right? And again, for disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, I'm not a licensed physician of any kind.
But we can Google.
We can Google.
Right?
You could Google the charts. You could Google whatever you want at this point.
Actually, I recommend Start Page. You get better results.
Go find it. Go find it. This is what we found. This is what we looked at. This is what we looked at. And what made us look even harder was the mandates got kicked in for Corona. That's what made us look even harder into this whole vaccine developments or shot developments or whatever. Before this, there were a very, very small group of people who called themselves vax deniers or vaccine deniers.
I don't know. They come up with some terrible term, but
whatever,
right now, yeah.
Right? There were a small group of parents that they didn't want to give the shots to their kids because of they said shots create autism and X, Y, and Z, which turned out to be true at some point.
I know. I think we all owe Jenny McCarthy an apology.
Right?
Yeah.
We all it can't because they're jamming the kids with 8 shots at one appointment, like they're going through the military line.
You touched it. Hold on.
It's like they're going to the military. A baby's here, 8 shots, boom. 2 in the arm, 2 in the thighs, and you're out the door. The kid just got 15,000 shots.
We are militarizing. We are militarizing healthcare, so there's that as well. But you touched on something that we could, if we get time, we might be able to go back to this, because this is actually the subject of a letter we're sending off to Congress today, and that has to do with how are they adjudicating the VA on vaccine injury, and that might be somewhat related. So But let's stick to this. So the first time the NDAA sort of didn't help was in fiscal year 22 when they said, "Hey, listen, this is legal, but we've got two statutes stating you can't give EUA products to soldiers. They have a right to refuse it."
Yeah.
Now, additionally, what happened is they limited discharges to general and honorable characterizations, and most of these cases ended up being shunted through administrative routes like separation boards or boards of inquiry. And what you need to know about that is it's a lower burden of proof for the government. So it's different than, say, a court martial you might get for doing something, becoming the subject of a safety briefing. So these administrative routes it makes it easier to sort of keep everything in-house, and I'll speak, I'm not in the military anymore, but I'll speak from a staff federal government employee standpoint. So, staff federal government employees, they have sort of stricture or regulations on limits on, not limits, but when you get some sort of disciplinary action, if it falls below a certain regulatory threshold, then it gets handled in-house. It also means that there's less of a burden of proof for the agency or department to show that they really do have wrongdoing, and there's less outlets for the employee to seek outside assistance. Let's say you're in Department of State,
Okay.
and you have been suspended for a week without pay because they've decided whatever it is you've done. It doesn't even have to be COVID related. Let's just say week without pay. Anything less than 2 weeks of a suspension of without pay, anything less than 2 weeks, you're not afforded the Merit Service Protection Board option or the OSC option, because in their mind you have not received enough harm to warrant that route. So, this is how I sort of read these administrative routes for the military. Yeah. And then these administrative processes, what they do is it makes it easier to funnel people out of the service. On one hand, people can avoid jail. Court martials generally end in usually more severe issues. However,
like
you don't
dishonorable discharge.
Yeah, you avoid like a dishonorable discharge. Okay. If you've got the court martial. If you got a court martial coming your way, you've done something.
Yeah,
you've done something that warrants something. Yeah. So, but with a court martial, at least you have a legitimate opportunity to fight in a military court system. So maybe if it was a court martial and someone said, "Give me the court martial," they could say, "Well, according to 21 USC 360 BBB-3 and 10 USC 1107 A." I don't have those memorized. I'm reading them. But they might be able to fight that, but that didn't happen.
Right.
So stuck there. Everybody got a handle on that first time that you get.
If you have questions, throw it in the comment section because we can respond back to you. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's see what else we got here. So this is the one and only way to legally challenge an order to Article 90 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice.
Okay.
So, and those decisions, that's the other thing that's important. When you go to court with that, those decisions set court precedent. So if they were allowed to go to a military court and say, "Hey, listen, I'm going to fight this in court. I'll take my chances." If they won, well, that would be set in stone in the military, sort of like case law outside in federal court. So there's one COVID case that actually made it to court, and I believe the name is Mark Bashaw. I don't know enough about that to speak too much, but I think it was dropped. So the second way this really sort of hurts us as a whole, not just the military, and is when these courts, when the NDAA comes out and they don't address, for example, restitution for the people who've been pushed out. How do we reintegrate those people? It was just an NDAA that said, hey, listen, the thing's over. But it didn't address, okay, can we bring these people back in? The people who were pushed out, the military service members who lost pay, lost rank, can we bring them back? On top of that, and this is the real kicker, we're talking about mooting of cases. Yeah. So the military cases, there's been a number of military cases that have been what they call, they've been deemed moot, meaning, hey, the mandate's over, so I guess
be on your way.
Be on your way. It's all good now. Mandate's over. And so the court will say, oh, well, listen, we don't have to adjudicate on that. The mandate's over. So the case is moot. They toss the case, and then all the valuable case law goes away. The case law that we need so that if they do it again, it stops it.
Which sucks. It's because not only, well, I'm going to look at it from a different side now.
Okay.
So besides the fact that these people got fired and they sued because they got fired for not, getting the shot, and, their cases being dropped or dismissed for not having merit because they refused to take a shot. Those people looked at it on a different level on saying, hey, if I get the shot, what happens if I get physically ill? Or what happens if I have a bad side effect? What's the response from the Fed side? Oh, well, you get sick, you get sick.
Actually, it's worse than that, friend. Can we jump into the VA a little?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was trying to segue into that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, never mind. You're on it.
So, but that's the thing. If military service member gets injured on duty, VA kicks in. Hey, you're injured, you're disabled, you're X, Y, and Z. And with the COVID side effects, that was not cleared to them, right? So if you got injured, if you got vaccine injured, that was not. They didn't have clear guidance on how to approach that subject. So if an individual got actual injury, like it had bad side effects and they were unable to serve, there was no clear guidance on how VA was going to treat that or how a service member was going to be diagnosed, right? And another sidebar to this was that the service member cannot go to the pharmaceutical company who issued or created the shot because they were under immunity. So if somebody got injured or had a severe side effect because of the shot, the pharmaceutical company was covered. You can't sue us. We will not, we're not liable. You're taking it at your own risk. That was the guidelines and the fine print from the pharmaceutical. You are basically taking it at your own risk. So think about that, right? It's like skydiving. You're throwing yourself off a cliff at your own risk. If the line happens to snap, you're going to die at your own risk. That's it.
You volunteered for that.
You volunteered. You volunteered. And the mandates were forced volunteering.
Without a safety parachute.
Without a safety parachute or a jumping cord.
Secondary parachute, yeah.
Or a jumping cord, right? So now when people came out and showed side effects, now I also have to say this. Some of the videos were not realistic that you see online. It could have been an old video. It could have been somebody just having a seizure from a long time ago. All that stuff comes out. You have to take everything with a grain of salt, right? And in the beginning, the censorship was outrageous, right? But it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. does not mean that it doesn't. You just can't rule it out, right? So going back to the DoD side, what was VA's role to treat individuals who got vaccine injured?
Let, let me jump in here. So
This is what I.
my pleasure. The Secretary of the VA has really wide authority to determine, policy within the VA and determine, the standard operating procedures that I think they're called rating officials or rating VA officers. I might have the term wrong, but
Yeah.
How they adjudicate on those things. So the Secretary has taken the stance that, or the policy position that vaccine, that vaccine injury lacks scientific and medical evidence, and that it's not a real thing. And so, with that stance, they've moved vaccine injury off the playing field for when, if you're a service member, you go into your VA and you're like, hey, listen, when I was in the service, I got this vaccine. I had seriously bad headaches or whatever the side effect was. And I think it's caused some long-term, health effects. But they've concluded that vaccines do not have long-term adverse health effects. And they're using this false claim to exclude veterans who've reported these vaccine injuries from receiving what they call a medical nexus opinion under the PACT Act. PACT Act. I'm forgetting what PACT stands for.
Don't ask me. I was not in
Okay.
the military, so
We'll have to.
we'll put a definition in the description.
Yeah,
When we find it.
So, but at the same time, they've made it easier for veterans to have essentially, any claimed disability considered for service connection due to toxic exposures in service. So the TERP piece. So, or toxic exposure. So, what's strange is a lot of times these vaccine, well, not strange, oddly coincidental, that the kind of vaccine injury effects you'd see for vaccine injury, we also see those from toxic exposures, those sort of disabilities. And the thing is, now that you have, 5 million veterans who have been jabbed with these mRNA immunotherapeutic injections, you have a real chance that vaccine injury is going to be just disappeared and categorized as a toxic exposure. So we'll do a hypothetical here. And there was a VA employee who helped get this, or actually he wrote most of this, but he talked about this hypothetical situation. He has said that, let's say you're a veteran from the Gulf War period and sometime 2 August 1990 through today. So that's the time frame. And let's say that person comes down with cardiomyopathy, heart issues, 2 years after separating from the service. Now, this hypothetical veteran never had any cardio-related complaints in service, but believes the condition was related to the COVID-19 vaccine. So he goes in and says, hey, I think it's this vaccine. So the veteran's service records, they're not going to be, they're going to be silent for any adverse event following the COVID-19 vaccine. But, that veteran goes in and decides to file a VA compensation claim for cardiomyopathy and says, hey, it's caused by the COVID-19 vaccine that was mandated during service. How do we put this? The only theory of service connection for vaccine injury under current VA policy is what they call a direct grant. And a direct grant of service connection requires 1, medical evidence of a current disability, 2, evidence of the incurrence or aggravation of a disease or injury in active military service, and 3, medical evidence of a nexus or a link between the current disability and the in-service disease or injury. So the VA has a duty to provide veterans with an examination and a medical nexus opinion where they say, hey, listen, we've established that there's, competent evidence of disability, and it looks like it's an in-service event or injury and an indication of association. Now, that's what they're supposed to try and come up with. Now, the hypothetical veteran isn't going to be eligible for an exam or a nexus opinion because of the vaccine injury claim, because VA policy states flat out, hey, there's no evidence of long-term health effects associated with vaccinations, and there's no evidence of an adverse event in service. So VA rating officers, they're going to be required to consider all possible theories of service connection before denying them a claim. So what they're going to do is say, okay, well, hold on, let's go through your whole service record and see if any of these things happened. So again, continuing with our hypothetical veteran, the service records for a Gulf War veteran shows a flight plan in which the veteran traveled in the airspace of the Persian Gulf, which is one of the many locations that qualify for presumption of participation in a toxic exposure risk activity. So that's TARA, toxic exposure risk activity. What does that mean? One, it requires a corresponding entry in an exposure tracking record system as defined by, and they've got a code here, but you guys don't need to know that. The secretary determines what qualifies in the subsection when taking into account. So these two things have to be met. So there's a qualification from the secretary, and there has to be sort of something happened. Now, to sort of shorten this up and keep it tight here, basically what's happening is anytime there's a vaccine injury, if there's any way possible that the VA can put it under a toxic exposure, they will. One, it's because the secretary has authority to say, hey, listen, there's no such thing as vaccine injury. And two, they do want to try and help the veteran with some sort of assistance. The problem is there's second and third order effects with this. Like misdiagnosing this as a toxic exposure is not going to help the sick veteran. And it's only going to make the data that comes out of this forever to be wrong. So, there's all these second and third order effects. And the only thing you can think is this is purposeful. I don't know.
Yeah, look, it's just like insurance company try to deny you coverage as much as possible. So they'll throw everything at you saying, hey, your claim is denied because X, Y, and Z. Your claim is denied is because this is self-inflicted. So the VA sort of doesn't want to function that way, but they do in certain cases, specifically when it comes down to like vaccine injuries.
Yeah.
Right. Not specifically COVID vaccine. Generally, vaccine injuries.
And you think they would have learned after anthrax that you really got to be a little more, circumspect.
Yeah, and the VA system is not the most trusted system on earth.
Well, yeah, they've definitely had some problems.
It should be a lot better than our, medical system or Medicare system.
Yeah,
but it's not. And unfortunately, a lot of veterans go through hell and back just to be able to get the coverage that they need or the help that they need, right? And so the problem lies here, that because of this, they end up in a different category of injuries.
They may not even get help. If let's say this person never served in was it, I think, South Asia,
right,
or over Iraq,
right, and that's where they get the claim gets declined, and they won't be able, if they're on a disability spectrum, that won't count as a disability. For you're supposed to get a certain percentage of disability for you to qualify for some sort of income or assistance. But if this is in play and they determine, hey, this was not a chemical related issue, then you miss that percentage to basically be able to get that assistance that you need, right? Because of how they categorize the entire injury that you receive.
Right. You have to have something in your record saying, hey, listen, I was injured. And then if there isn't anything in your record and you come and say, well, I think it was the vaccine, they say, whoa, hold on. There's no such thing as that. Yeah. But we will check and see if you flew over Iraq. So, I don't know, man. That's pretty nuts to me.
Again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how these languages work in these legal documents. But, to dumb it down to my level, from what he reads, is basically the VA will determine what kind of injury you receive based on their own determination, not what your condition is at this point.
So this is what we're doing to the military. We're forcing them to get a shot. Then we're removing the vaccine mandate. So anybody who is separated from service or harmed because they decided they didn't want it, they're not going to be made whole. The military that's left all got the shot, but God forbid they get a vaccine injury, because when they go to the VA and ask for some sort of compensation, if they never went into an area where there was a possibility of a toxic exposure, which, by the way, who wants to be in an area with a toxic exposure? Well, then they're screwed over too.
Hey, if you get the shot, go to Haiti. Come back. I don't know.
I don't make sure you fly over Iraq. I don't know. It's terrible.
Fly over Iraq, Afghanistan, where there's where they have tires burning.
So the question is, how does this help our national security?
It doesn't. It doesn't. This is why the Army recruitment is down. This is why Navy recruitment, Marine recruitment, all the military
How's
branch
Space Force doing? Are they doing okay?
I mean,
I don't know. I haven't been tracking it, but
they're not flying. But military recruitment is down throughout the United States. Why do you think that is?
well, I've read a bunch of editorials about fathers who are, former service member. Like, yeah, I don't want my.
I mean, nobody wants their kid in the military service anymore because of how ridiculous it's gone.
Which is terrible, because it's noble. It's noble to.
It used to be. It used to be a proud achievement for any individual that served in the military, actually created a career for themselves in the military, retired out of the military. They were respected. A lot of people did 15, 20 years in the military.
Yeah.
But those numbers are down as well. A lot of people go in, they do 4 years because they just want to take advantage of the VA loans and the education part of it, and they drop out, right? Because that's just how it is. But the recruitments were up. They were recruiting people. And then the military decided to go woke.
Well, all I know is both of these, like the rulings that are coming out from the judges that are mooting these cases, the policies that were put in place that didn't allow our military to be made whole, and then the back end getting slapped around if you have a vaccine injury. I don't know. It doesn't bode well.
It is devastating, man. I mean, look, a lot of people who came back from Iraq and Afghanistan with PTSD and all that stuff, they went through hell and back through the VA trying to get help, and the VA failed them miserably.
Well, you know what the VA did, and this is a problem I have. They stopped. I forget what it was called. It was called. I forget the technical name for it, but they used to treat PTSD with discussion. They'd have people lined up to go talk to these people.
Yeah.
They've moved to just medication now. And I mean, look, I think that's a terrible idea. I think
I was having this discussion with my cousin when he was going through med school. And my brother actually, brought up this good point where he's like, you go into med school where they teach you how to treat a problem with a pill. And that's it.
It's not a whole body.
It's not a whole.
It's not holistic. I don't know what the term is.
You just go into school. You're like, I have a headache. Okay, take Tylenol. My headache's really bad.
It's the military. It's Motrin. It's Motrin.
It's Motrin military. Okay. Sorry. But, private sector.
Yeah.
I have a headache. Take Tylenol. I have a really bad headache. Take Excedrin. It's terrible. Take Excedrin extra strength. I can't sleep at night. Here's some codeine. That's it. They won't talk about change your diet. They don't talk about exercise. They don't tell you to maybe you should not eat fatty food. They don't tell you shouldn't eat acidic food or X, Y, and Z.
Okay? Or get some sun.
And this is my life experience. When I was a child, I had migraine, really, really bad migraine.
Me too.
Where at age 16, I was prescribed Tylenol with codeine. At age 16.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that is bad.
Okay. At age 16, I was prescribed Tylenol with codeine. And I did I went to my dad took me to the doctor to do like wave scan of my brain and all that stuff, right? And when you take Tylenol with codeine, you're drowsy. You don't really you're not up like and I had to go to class. So when I'm in class, I'm drowsy. I can't understand what's going on. And I was trying to learn English. This is probably like my English just went to crap. So
Your English is good.
um, but what changed for me was when I started doing some activities. I was a chubby kid. I'm still chubby, so that's just how I was. But when I started doing activities, playing basketball, playing some softball, just a little activity, just got my blood flowing. I started walking home versus taking the bus. And if I had to take the bus, I would get off 3 stops before I get home so I could walk that distance home. And within a month, I was off those pills.
See, that's the thing. Like it's about healthy living, and I think that advice we should probably tell Fauci, Birx, some of the health officials that are over here telling us to hold ourselves in a room for the last couple of years.
I mean, you go to a doctor for cholesterol. Here's a pill. You go to a doctor for you're almost at you're diabetic. Here's a pill. Here's insulin.
We should have Doc Ruddy on this one.
We should, right? But that's what I'm saying. Like they don't tell you, hey, you should watch what you're eating. That's it. That's what they tell you, right? This is why you have a million different types of supplements out there. A million, right? Some people genuinely don't have time to exercise or to do 5-minute walks or whatever. So, some people have such busy lives. I understand.
You can take the stairs, though.
I understand. I totally understand. Look, I'm not a skinny guy. I am overweight, 100%. I totally understand how that goes. But I still, like when I get home, I'm not sitting at home. I still move
kids.
around. I have
You
4
kids.
kids.
You can't.
I I'm like up, down the stairs, up, down the stairs, up. It's my eating habit. It's my own fault, right? It's my own fault. And I don't want to kind of get too far away from the subject. The subject is, as he said, when the VA, when the guy with the PTSD goes, they're gonna sit down with him for 5 minutes. Okay, here's some pills.
I wish I could remember that there was there's a policy, and I forget the name of it, but it was like how they treated folks with PTSD. They had like I'll remember it as soon as we end this. But
I mean, just like any other injuries, right? This like a mental illness is because you don't occupy your mind with anything positive or productive, right? If you continuously just sit there and think bad thoughts, continuously think bad thoughts, guess what's going to happen the next day? You're going to have bad thoughts. And the following day, you're going to have bad thoughts, right? You got nothing else to do. You watch Netflix for freaking, you binge watch freaking movies that are depressing. You watch the news, which is constantly depressing. There's never good news.
But this is why you need a little Feds for Freedom, because we're talking about how we walk out of this mess, how we make things better. We have those silver linings that hopefully we entertain a little.
And I tell you why.
Tell me.
I tell you why.
Okay.
When the whole vaccine mandate came out, right? Feds for Medical Freedom was developed based on everybody complaining, right? And that tad bit of good news that came out that there's a lawsuit against the mandate, people's mind kind of changed. They had a positive perspective.
They had hope.
Right? They had a positive perspective. Now, there's also that negative feeling. Oh, that's not going to go anywhere. That's not going to go anywhere. I know I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to get the shot. I'm going to bend the knee. All that. But with all the news that was coming out, with all the lawsuits that were being filed, with all the small steps that was being taken, that one day when the injunction took place, everybody's hope was glowing, right?
Oh, yeah.
It was glowing. It was glorious day for everybody, not just Feds for Medical Freedom, for everybody in the country, because that sort of had a dominoes effect. They're like, oh, if the feds don't have to take it, private sector doesn't have to take it.
And I'll tell you what, this is, I like ending on a positive note. So this is what we need to say. We won. It doesn't matter how everything else turns out in the lawsuits right now. We won a David and Goliath fight. We shut down vaccine mandates for federal government employees. There's the domino effect. And it was in conjunction with, the OSHA mandate getting shut down, and I think it was the 6th and 11th circuit courts that shut down for contractors. We stayed the course, and I actually think we've got a few other David and Goliath fights we're going to win regarding accountability and creating some integrity, and maybe even just reforming some of this stuff from the inside. What do you think?
Yeah, I like it.
Is this a good way to end it?
Yeah, I like it. And guys, if I'm speaking from personal experience, and no matter how many times you fail or we fail, there's always going to be some win. There's always some sort of light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, nothing ends with just a failure. Okay, there's always some sort of win here and there, whether it's small or gigantic. That's not the point. The point is not giving up and continuing the fight.
Yep.
That's all it is. If it's your mental health, you got to fight it. If it's your physical health, you got to fight it, right? If you feel lonely, you got to fight it. You got to figure out a way to get out of that situation you're in, right? And again, I'm not a doctor. If you really are hurting, definitely seek professional help, right? Do that. Don't be embarrassed. Definitely don't be embarrassed. I've had my embarrassing moments throughout my life, but once you cross that barrier, you're gonna thank yourself for it. Not anybody else but yourself. That's the only thing you can do. And we're gonna try to bring you guys as much information as possible on these mandates and what's going on with the case, but we also want to cover other topics.
Yeah, no. We
definitely
want to.
We want to cover other topics.
We will be covering other topics
because I understand COVID's getting old, vaccines are getting old. Nobody wants to hear about it anymore.
But freedom never gets old.
Freedom never gets old, baby. We're here to have freedom, and we can't have the freedom taken away from us. So, if you don't have anything else, man.
No, you covered it,
guys. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. Thanks for all the comments. Hit the like button. Share the video with your friends and family, whoever you think that would enjoy the content of this podcast. We are an upcoming podcast, so cut us a little slack. We are fixing it. We're gonna come back. We're gonna give you guys some great content. So until the next time, peace out.